Okay. All right. I think we are. Oh, Michael Markman is here as well. We are streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn,
Okay, let him
YouTube,
come on.
and Twitter. And we're receiving Michael Markman, who is here with us.
Michael,
today.
can I have some audio, please?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's great.
Good.
Frank, we heard. Dennis, we heard. Everybody, we heard. Okay.
Okay.
And remember what is off.
Yes. Okay. Ooh.
Wow, that's realistic.
Meow. Dennis or Keith? Whose dog?
It's Dennis's dog. He's in lip sync with him.
Okay. We're going to go with it?
Yeah.
All righty. All right.
Real.
Mute is off. Are you sure? How about we mute Dennis just temporarily?
No, let's go.
Okay. Mute is off. And we can go in 3, 2, 1, and.
Hi, mute is off. And my name is Steve Gillmor, and this is the Gillmor Gang. Joining us from the state of Massachusetts, also a Commonwealth, is Dennis Pombriant. Welcome, Dennis.
Greetings, Steve. Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, but
maybe works.
The other voice that we just heard is from London, and that's Frank Radis. Welcome, Frank.
hello, Steve. Hello, gang. Great to be here.
All righty.
From the Seattle Northwest area is Michael Markman.
How do you do? How do all of you do on this fine Sunday?
Not fine here.
Uh-oh.
Why not?
Well, we just had hurricane force winds yesterday.
Woo.
Like there was the 122 miles an hour at one part of northeastern England, 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour in Richmond and London. Lots and lots of damage, lots of trains.
So you got weather problems.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And the Queen has COVID.
And the Queen has COVID, but mild.
But we'll get right back to our show after we get back to our show.
Jesus.
From the Atlanta, Georgia area is Brent Leary.
Yes, you got a winner. Thank you.
Oh,
Champions.
Hat.
What is that?
Nice.
now did you pre-order that, Brent?
Yeah, before they won.
Of course not. I'm not jinxing myself.
That would have jinxed it, right?
No, he was in a large crowd of Ram fans.
No.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't.
Unless you know something I don't. Just one of me here.
I certainly don't know anything you don't
Right.
already know.
Brent, I would love it if we could get your chin up from the bottom of the screen.
Yeah,
Permanently.
that's funny.
Yeah, he's got the big tools there.
Thank you.
Okay, and from Palo Alto, California is Keith here.
Good morning. My team won 4-2 today, away from home at Leeds. It was a great
Woo!
game. 6 a.m. up, drinking coffee, loving it.
4-2. Is that a baseball score?
4-2.
Manchester United. All right.
Could have
Come
been
on,
a
you
tie. You know,
Reds.
ties are okay here.
Yep, but not shirts.
Didn't the Dave Clark 5 come from Manchester?
The Dave Clark 5, goodness me. Now there's a question. I think they came from London,
No.
but I could be wrong.
Well, maybe.
Somebody could find out.
So
People out all over.
Someone
So
in the
I'd like
audience already found out.
So I'd like to start by pointing people at the, are you ready, Keith? The Gillmor Gang Telegram feed.
T.me/Gillmor Gang.
Ah.
Right. Let's NFT that. Because
By the way, that is not a sneak peek, but it could be a promotional clip that is posted like once a day.
that was the NFT reference. Keith, way ahead of you. It was very good. We'll cut it right out.
No.
I've been practicing as well.
Now cut that out.
Literally.
Okay. So
By the
Dennis
way,
Pombriand
just for the readers, just so that people know,
we'll be
it's
right back
actually-
to our filibuster after this important message.
this message says whether it's Twitter, twitter.com/Gillmor Gang, or whether it's Telegram, t.me/Gillmor Gang, or whether it's Substack, gillmorgang.substack.com, it's pretty much the same brand.
Ooh,
Wow.
nice.
Okay, so Dennis Pombriand posted an article on the Telegram feed, which was really hard to take. It was a guy, how do you pronounce the guy's name? Ross?
Oh, doubt that? No, doubt hat?
Is that his name?
Yeah.
It's a stunningly intelligent article, I think. And it basically makes the case that we're all doomed. So I thought I'd lead with that.
Oh, leading with doom.
Just get it out of the way now.
Doom, you say?
Yeah. It basically would, do you want to express what it says in a companion Substack newsletter at great length? The same thing with slightly different nomenclature?
No.
Okay.
You mean work for free?
Which post is it, by the way? I can't see it. Which post is it?
It's the posted by Ross.
It's
Douthat.
Ross Douthat's post or op-ed from today
In the New York Times.
in the Times.
And how would we see
New class
that?
war comes to Canada. I
Oh,
believe.
can Dems dodge doomsday?
Rings a bell.
Can Dems dodge doomsday? Okay, now I'm looking at it.
And what
I
they
think that's,
referred. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think that was. I don't think that's it. I think that was. What's her name? Maureen Dowd's yesterday. I could be wrong.
It was, yeah, that's Maureen Dowd.
Is this the
Yeah.
one about the truckers?
Yes.
Oh, the one about the truckers, the class war.
Yeah. Yeah, fundamentally what it was saying was that we're a splintered or divided nation, and he's come up with a very interesting divide or description of what's on each side of the divide based on a post there's a link in his piece. You should go read the link, the post on the link. The basic point is that we are divided not by blues and reds per se, but by the elites and the rest of the world, or what they describe as the virtual world versus the practical world. And it makes a great deal of sense about it. The point of the trucker protest in Canada is to point out to the elites that your elite world might be a wonderful place, but it doesn't deliver bread to the supermarket or plow the streets or anything else. There's a great dependency on the practical world and the people who inhabit it, and we are sort of taking them for granted and even subjugating them, or at least treating them badly as members of our democratic society. What's not in the article, what I'd love to talk about briefly, is that I think what we're seeing is what Vladimir Putin has seen, and why, and it I think describes why Putin is pushing so hard on Ukraine. It's basically because Putin is a practical realist, and he sees the West as a bunch of elitists who won't fight. And consequently, he's feeling emboldened to go into Ukraine and to upset the post-World War II order. So that's all I was
Okay,
going to say.
everybody but Keith, weigh in, please.
Dude.
He thought it was Christmas, but it turns out to be purgatory.
Oh, come on. Can we hear from Keith?
I don't know, can we?
All right.
Come on.
Well, there's a lot to unpack. I mean,
Yes,
'cause
there is.
there's many different themes in there, and it's hot. I mean, if one could focus on, Hillary Clinton once described the Trump voters as what was it? The unmentionables or something. I forgot what it was now.
Deplorables.
The deplorables, yeah.
And I should point out, she said only half of them were deplorable.
Yeah, but there is this.
The half that voted her out of office.
The article describes it as the meritocracy, but it could easily just be the elite, the word that Dennis used. And in a way, most of us are kind of part of it, right? Because of our economic position in society, apart from Steve, who's obviously not struggling that much. He's got a big TV behind his head.
It's not big enough, trust me.
And
That's what she said.
I paused for somebody to say that.
Boy, you beat me to it.
Anyways, there is this, and it goes back to if anyone who's ever read Plato's Republic, it goes back to this idea that some people are just smarter than everybody else.
Is that the hardbound or the comic book version?
It was the scroll version, actually.
Any copy of Plato's Republic, which is totally different to Socrates or the other Greek philosophers, and
But you didn't think you'd be listening to Plato's Republic this morning.
But Plato's Republic describes leaders as philosopher kings and argues they shouldn't be elected because they're just smarter than everybody else. So they should be selected by society to run stuff. And, the deplorables should just do their work. And this divide between the smart and the virtual, as it's called in the article, and the practical, it goes all the way back in history, and it's kind of doesn't serve the cause of progress well to think of the masses as either stupid or unimportant. And that's kind of what goes on. And it's dangerous as heck. And the Democrats do it more than anyone else, actually. The Republicans seize on that to try to energize that working class base around themselves on the basis that no one else is listening to them. And it's a very interesting set of things. And the Canadian
good. Let's Michael, you want to weigh in here?
It is so intertwined and complex that all these simple descriptions fail to actually map to the real world, I think. The truckers in Canada represent a very small number of people who have very large vehicles. So they can, it's asymmetrical warfare. They can create a lot more disruption than democracy would allow them. If this was a question of a vote, they wouldn't have anything. So who is being ignored? The masses or this tiny group of troublemakers?
I think that's a misreading of the data, and I'll tell you why. The truckers are not simply truckers in this situation. They are representative of better than half of the population of people who maybe finished high school, maybe got some college, maybe didn't graduate, maybe have jobs in the physical sweat world. It's not just truckers, it's people in construction and in real estate and all kinds of things that make the world run.
But the people in those jobs are the people that have job security. They're the ones that actually have work. They're not going to be displaced by algorithms. You need someone to be able to do the farming and to do the building and to do the paving. I mean, they're in a good position, it seems to me. As the rest of us retreat into Zuckerberg's metaverse, they'll be left with the whole world.
They're actually not in a very good position because although there's a lot of them, they don't control very much. It's interesting in my world to look at what's going on in this country and describe it as a plantation economy, because we have a whole lot of people that we won't support with government programs, and we won't allow the minimum wage to rise. So they're basically stuck in this feudal situation where they can't get ahead.
Well, what do you mean by we? I mean, contrary to what Keith just said,
first person pronoun, Michael.
It's the Democrats that are trying to raise the minimum wage. It's the Democrats that are trying to put in programs that support people. So, who is really in charge? It's not the elites. It's the owners. It's always been the owners. The philosopher kings were never in charge. It was the landowners who were in charge. It's always the owners in charge, and everything else is just a lot of fluff to keep people entertained.
Republican senators and representatives and governors.
Michael, I have a question, which is, by the way, I wasn't trying to have a go at the Democrats. I was just trying to describe how clever the Republicans are at getting, let's call it broadly speaking, the working class.
That's a question?
Yeah, my question is this. Isn't it the case that large numbers of people who should naturally be Democrats identify more with the Republicans because of some of these issues, this kind of elitist overlording kind of stuff?
Well, I think there was a shift that the Democrats took in the 80s with the new Democrats, the people who brought Clinton to power, that began serving the college-educated elites more than the working class, and I think that was something that created a huge opportunity for the right. But this is not the politics aren't being waged on economic grounds. They're being waged on cultural grounds. They are being waged on the residual racism that's been with this country from the founding. It's a question of not, are you making enough money? It's a question of, are the blacks gaining on you?
Well, no, but you see, I don't want to be critical, but I think that falls into the trap of pigeonholing the majority of poor people as kind of backward in their views, racist, sexist, and to be honest, most aren't. I'm
not trying to pigeonhole them. I'm trying to describe the way Republicans court them. The Republicans don't court them by saying, we're going to support you. They're saying, we're going to keep the brown people out of this country. We're going to build a wall. We're going to keep the Muslims out of this country. That's how they're being courted. They're not being courted.
You can't deny that there's an economic effect from that. The Republicans have for 50 years been running on issues that get people excited, hot button issues, and then getting into office and then ignoring those people and going off and doing what they want.
Right. And what they want to do is to make it easier for rich people to keep more of their money. I mean, that's the bizarre truth of what's going on. The Republicans govern on behalf of the economic elites by raising cultural issues that get poor people excited.
Okay.
Anti-gay or anti-abortion or anti-black.
No,
hang on a second, Keith.
Sorry.
Frank, give us some practical opinion.
Practical, not virtual.
The West is not going to cower. They will fight, A, and B, Putin has overplayed his hand and is now stuck with the hand that he was dealt. And C, we went to sleep last night with Boris Johnson saying that this is Ukraine would be the biggest war in Europe since 1945. Interestingly enough, he picked the end of the war as the date. But I mean, I can tell you that there was an awful lot of people here in the UK going, "Oh no, this is what are we going to do?" So the West will not cower. People are scared. The stock market is going to tank when it opens on Tuesday because there will be something happening in Ukraine by then.
Well, there's something happening. So let me ask this. About a month ago, we all went on record as predicting that Russia will not invade. And our prediction so far has held, but we didn't put an expiration date on that prediction. So I wonder if we want to revise it.
Now, I said there was a lot to unpack, and we've now jumped.
Yeah, but let's do the poll again.
Yeah,
I think they already have invaded. I think that there's enough going on in the east in Ukraine to indicate that something has already started.
Okay, that's
So
one.
I vote yes.
One for yes, it's happening. Anybody else want to venture an opinion? Go ahead.
I basically agree. I think we'll see an invasion this week. I think Putin's been very cagey about making sure that he didn't do anything during the Olympics. The Olympics are over as of today.
Well,
If anybody, but nobody noticed, by the way.
Brent, nobody watched.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a meeting with, is it
Hang on a
Lavrov?
sec. Brent, please, your vote.
Yeah, it looks like something's gonna happen.
Okay, Keith, your vote.
I do not think something's going to happen as in an invasion, but I do think something's going to happen as in the Lavrov US meeting. I think it's on Wednesday. It basically, the map of the world is being rewritten in front of our eyes, and it's really all about Russia and China and Asia and the US, and it's not really about Ukraine at all.
And so that's a yes or no.
I said no.
No.
Okay, so but there's going to be a meeting, and then it'll be yes.
No, I don't
Are
think.
you,
it will
are
be.
you, are you saying the map will be written without an invasion?
I don't think the US is in a position to come out favorably in any circumstance. So I think Putin has got the aces in his deck, and the US knows that, which is why they're saying if he invades, they'll just do economic sanctions.
But
the map of the world is being rewritten, period.
hasn't
Hang on,
China?
I want to finish. Hang on, I want to finish the poll. You started this, Michael.
Yes, I did. I'm conflicted, but I think that Putin will climb down.
So let me ask, is
Because
it not true-
climbing down is the only way that he can prove that Biden is a liar. If he invades, then Biden was right. So
There's actually another option, and I found it in Foreign Affairs, the journal Foreign Affairs, written by Michael McFaul, who used to be ambassador to Moscow. His take is that as Keith says, the map of the world is being redrawn. McFaul thinks that a negotiation that would bolster or reinterpret or relitigate the 50-year-old treaty called the Helsinki Final Act, 1975, is up for reevaluation, and a negotiation between Putin and his surrogates and Biden and his surrogates is, according to McFaul, the thing that could stop a war from happening. And I think that's the way that you get to a point where neither side says it blinked.
Can I ask if there can be an invasion and not be a war? Isn't it possible that they could move in from the east, funnel through where there is already some support for the Russians, and make their way into Kyiv and take over without it being a war? Does it have to be a war? I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just throwing. Wait a minute. That's the first thing, and the second thing is, isn't it true that China has actually been a supporter of the Ukraine having its own independence and not supporting Russia in this instance? I mean, I think that somebody said today on one of the talk shows that we make a mistake if we try and put communist China and communist Russia in the same basket.
Well, communist Russia isn't communist anymore.
Well,
neither is communist Russia.
Putting the two countries in the same basket.
Some of us would say it never was, but let's move on. To Frank's tactical question, the overwhelming force on the side of Russia means there would be probably not much of a war other than whatever the guerrilla war would be by the Ukrainian people. But there wouldn't be, I mean, the Ukrainian military is no match for the Russian military, clearly. The US has already said that it isn't planning to fight, but it is planning to use economic sanctions. And the surrounding countries are not in a position to do anything anyway and don't even want to, Germany being the best example of that. So this war is not very likely. Taking over Ukraine, I don't think will happen. I agree with Michael that you use the phrase Putin will back down. I'd use the phrase Putin's already won just by doing what he's done. In terms of the redrawing the world map, he's already put himself into a much stronger position than he was before, not weaker.
Well, except in this regard, we know that one of Putin's objectives has been to weaken NATO, and it seems that he's had the opposite effect.
Not really, because look at no one really cares a shit about NATO in NATO. I mean, NATO is just a name; it's not really an organization. It doesn't exist in any meaningful sense other than policy.
That's just not true. There are bases all over Europe that are military bases for NATO, by NATO, from which NATO conducts exercises all the time.
That's true. That's true. But I mean, it's not a fighting force. Well, let's see. I predict NATO is not a fighting force and is weaker than it's ever been because there's no need for it. Ever since the Cold War came to an end, it shouldn't really have existed anyway.
Well, you know,
there may be a revived
Germany. The new chancellor of Germany is making noises about spending more money on armaments within the last week, which is directly opposed to what Angela Merkel was all about. Things have changed. The Germans understand that. So do the French. So do the Brits. NATO really is coming more together over this.
Who should be America's friends in the next 50 years? Italy, France, the UK, and Germany are not
Hang on a
high on the
second.
list.
How do we get to 50 years in the future?
How
about 5 minutes from now?
I think it's all.
You know what? I thought I heard today that the Minister of Defense in the Ukraine said that they had sufficient number of anti-tank weapons for every tank that the Soviets had. So somebody gets an itchy trigger finger, and now I'm going to go against what I suggested, and then there's a war.
There'll be a shooting war. The Ukrainians have made all indications that they're going to fight, and if Russia were to come in where you're saying they'd come in, they'd be probably 5 to 7 days away from Kyiv. It'd be much easier for them to invade from the north. Regardless, Ukraine can't win, but Ukraine can inflict a lot of damage.
So I think we've got to assume that there's a bigger game being played here. Just like when Germany invaded Poland in 1938, was it?
39, September 1st.
Brent, are you okay?
Huh? Yeah.
Oh, listen, Brent's team won.
So there's a bigger game being played, which isn't about Germany and Poland and isn't about Russia and Ukraine. Germany and Poland was really about the transition of power between the UK and the US on the world stage. And that became obvious during the next 6 years. And if you look at what happened at the end of the war, it was really the handing of the baton from the UK to the US. The game that's being played now is the rise of the East. And Ukraine's just a sideshow. The real visit to the Olympics by Putin and the meeting with the Chinese was a hint at what it's really all about. And the next 50 years are all about that. So if you're playing a board game, assuming that it's the Cold War again, that's wrong. It isn't. The game being played here is, what is the US's role in the future? And will it, make friends in the East in order to be strong in the face of rising threats?
Okay, so what I'm hearing here is that the gang thinks largely that the war has already started. And then there's Keith that thinks that this is 50 years from now, something is going to become clear. In the interests of, we have unlimited time here on the network, but in the interest of getting somewhere, does anybody want to change the subject?
See, Brent, this is like first down in Berlin, goal in Warsaw.
I mean, here's the thing with all this. It just feels like there's a lot of talk, and I'm not just talking about us. I'm talking about everywhere you turn on the TV. There's a lot of talk about this, and there's what's going to happen is going to happen. I don't know what it is, and apparently nobody does. It just feels like, wow, there's got to be something else. There's got to be some other thing or some other way to deal with this, but it just feels like there's not. So I don't know. I guess the conversation goes on until the shooting starts. I don't know. Apparently it's already started, but it just feels like there's really absolutely nothing that people can do to make this a better situation. So let's hunker down, keep your head down, try to get through it. I mean, am I missing something here? Because it doesn't sound like there's any countries that are going to come to the rescue. It's like a stalemate, and it's all, it's basically a power grab. China, I guess, is backing up Russia because that's a way to get back at us. I don't know. It just feels like, was this what was going on in like 1914? To 1918, I have no idea, but it feels like, there's almost like a Versailles, but not going to Versailles. It's like, oh, maybe we're going to let Russia do this, and somehow trying to get something out of that. And I don't know. It just feels really tiresome right now.
There's a not a symmetry between what goes on in Russia and what goes on in China. China is building a robust economy. Russia is basically a bunch of fossil fuels.
They're one trick pony.
And so China's path forward is much different from Russia's. Russia is just trying to export oil and gas.
Yeah, but they must want something. They must feel like there's something that Russia is useful against us, particularly.
China's very short of oil and gas, by the way. China is a massive importer of energy.
One other slightly different point. I think Russia is acting now because they're only going to get weaker. They're a nation of 142.5 million people, declining at 2% per year. Think about what that means over the course of a decade.
They only have 102 million people over there?
142.
140. That's wow.
And their economy is about roughly the economy of Italy in terms of their gross domestic product.
Exactly. And all they have to export is probably the largest fossil fuel deposits left on Earth. But here's the problem. It's not enough. And the West needs more energy than even Russia can provide. If Russia does something stupid and the supply of natural gas from Russia to Europe is curtailed or even impeded, it will be a huge impetus to the green movement to bring on stream more renewables. And when that happens, it has happened in the past. When that happens, the Russian economy tanks. If you go back to the 1980s, the United States convinced Saudi Arabia to pump oil as fast as it could. We also found oil in the North Sea. We brought a glut of oil to the market, which prevented Russia from selling oil at a significant enough profit to support its economy. By the end of the 1980s, that in combination with trying to compete with Ronald Reagan's Star Wars program broke the Russian economy, and the Russian state fell as a result. That all is being teed up again. I think Putin knows that, and I think Putin knows that if he doesn't act now, he's never going to have a better chance.
Now, how much of what Putin is doing do you think is based on rational economic and political considerations, and how much is psychological? You know, he has said that he thought the greatest tragedy was the breakup of the Soviet Union. Is he simply trying to reconstitute Greater Russia because that's been his bug in his head since he came to power, or does he see some kind of rational political advantage in doing this?
I think the former, Michael, which is, you know, it's always hard for us to put ourselves into the mindset of the Russian people, but the Russian people, Putin's very popular. The combination of Christianity and Russian nationalism actually works very well there, and he's popular because he believes that the breakup of the Soviet Union and the formation of all the states around it, in their mindset, would be similar to the Union ending here and California and Texas becoming independent nations, and somebody somewhere would want to put them back together again. So in their mindset, that is a kind of not a difficult thing to understand in some ways, that they think like that.
You know, it's not just theoretical. It actually happened that there were some states that seceded, and there was someone in Washington who expended a great deal of treasure to put it back together again.
Yeah. So the Soviet Union felt like a single place, just like the United States does. And the fact that it no longer is, it clearly is an issue for them.
Keith, let me ask you a question, which is, how's that electric vehicle of yours doing?
Well, guess what? I've got news. I've got two now. I sold my Subaru, so I'm now a 100% electric home. Both cars are electric. I got a Kia EV6 as well as the Mustang Mach-E, and it is kind of weird, to be honest. It feels like you're driving a toy because it doesn't make a noise.
Well, how far can you go before you run out of power?
In the EV6, 300 miles ish, and in the Mustang about 240.
And is there a charging station 300 miles out?
There's charging stations about every 20 miles these days.
There's an app for that.
Yeah, Electrify America is the app.
What a name.
They're everywhere, and you get, you know, it comes. It's now really simplified. Like, it used to be really hard, but now you just plug in the thing. It boosts your credit cards in the app. By the way, filling up my Subaru cost me $100 at the pump. Filling up an electric car, $4 or $5. You know, I mean, it's a massive difference.
Wow.
Keith, it took you a long time to pull the trigger on the first car. How is it that you got to the second car so quickly?
Because once I had one, I thought, why have I got this other one that guzzles gas? And by the way, even better still, the second-hand market. I used Shift, which is a service that buys cars from people. You go online and you type in everything about your car and it gives you a price. My Subaru cost $42,000 new. I sold it after 3 years of driving it for $38,000.
Wow.
That's
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you, pandemic.
So there's a good thing that came, speaking of electricity, there's a good thing that came out of the weather story, and that is that that on the day of the biggest part of the weather story, 45% of the UK's power was because it came from wind.
Ah.
So
in other words,
I don't think any birds died, and I actually don't think anyone got cancer. But you know, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It does make the landscape ugly, though, to see those windmills everywhere.
Well,
especially if they're near your golf course.
okay. That was my vain attempt at trying to talk tech. So,
well, no, but actually, electric cars. I don't know if you noticed, but this week, Fisker announced a $29,000 car, electric. Fisker is a startup in the valley here, like Rivian.
It's not the same people who make the scissors, is it?
No. So if you look at the spectrum from luxury cars down to cars that anyone can afford who can afford a car, the whole spectrum now. At the high end, you've got Lucid, who have these cars that drive 600 miles an hour, cost 150K. And Mercedes is kind of up there, and Audi's up there, BMW is up there. And then you've got Fisker, which is 29,000. Tesla's now becoming fairly expensive. Even the base one is quite expensive now, $60-ish thousand. But I think you're getting the whole spectrum of electric cars. And this promise that, at some point there will only be electric cars, I now believe that'll happen. I don't know how quickly, Dennis, you might know. I'm going to guess 2030 or 35 or something, there won't be gas cars anymore.
It's not that far away.
I think they're projecting longer than that, but as a practical matter, how many gas cars will be sold?
I mean, there's two issues. One threshold is no more gas cars will be manufactured, and the other is the half-life of everything that's on the road before they're all retired.
Which ironically is a good thing. Right now we have the capacity in North America to make about 17 million cars a year. There are about 285 million cars on the road. You do the math and you're looking at about 16, 17 years just to replace every car. And of course, in that time, you'll have to replace some of the electrics that first came out. So
I've got a snap poll here. How many people think Apple will release a car? So, Frank, you mean at the moment you're saying yes?
Yes, at the moment.
Okay, so it's 3-3 evidently. Okay, and here's my vote.
No.
No.
Okay. Huh.
No, I mean, where's my Apple TV?
What?
Huh?
They've been, people have been
Well,
saying that Apple was going to release a TV. It never happened. They said it was going
You
to,
don't need to.
they figured they cracked the code on television. It never happened.
So I think the one place where, I voted yes, but I could easily be persuaded you're right, because I think it's the confidence level. It's probably about 50-50.
I would say why didn't these dudes just make like 25 billion in revenue and profit last quarter? I would suspect that unless they find out or think that whatever they put their money in going forward is going to give them a return that they're already getting, why would they do it? And there's no need to do things that are ridiculous or outlandish because what they're currently doing is working pretty good and they're making 30 billion in profit a quarter. I mean, damn, that's
that's a good reason for them to do it. A and B, I think if they did it and they priced it right, it would be the leader in the space.
What do they know about making cars, though? I mean, look,
that much money you can hire somebody that knows how to make
cars.
What did they know about making headphones?
Yeah,
they bought Beats. I mean,
what did they know about making telephones?
I don't know.
More than anybody else, actually, it turned out.
As a practical matter, the time to be an early mover has passed, and it would cost a horrendous amount of money for Apple to get into the business unless they bought a small producer. I think you've got to watch that angle. I don't expect them to start from scratch and build a car.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Jean-Louis Gasset has published numerous analyses which say that it's just not practical because the margins aren't there. The support issues are horrendous, and he's been saying they won't do it. But on the other hand, we do know they have teams working on something in the automotive space, and we do know that they have huge investment in the automotive space. So something is cooking, whether it's going to be a software stack for other cars to use, or whether it's going to be something else.
That makes sense.
Time will tell.
If I was advising them, I would encourage them to do it, because I think the car that I bought this week is kind of like the BlackBerry of electric cars. It's great compared to what came before the BlackBerry, the flip phones and such, but it's nowhere near close to what's possible. And for example, the self-driving, I use the self-driving on one of my cars on the 280 freeway. And, it can maintain the lanes. If you indicate, it'll change lanes for you safely. If it knows you're going off, it'll go off. But it's nowhere near close to self-driving. And all the rumors about Apple are that they're going to produce a car with no steering wheel. In other words, when they produce a car, it will be 100%.
Oh, I can do that.
And so
honestly,
what would be the iPhone leap
Hell.
in cars? Well, only Apple could do that. And now Apple's share price is prefigured on growth. Only if it keeps growing will the share price be maintained. So that profit is, if it's flat, the share price will go down.
It's
The
so much
profit has to
easier-
grow.
Yeah,
And
but it's so
the
much
only way you can grow a
Well,
profit of
Hey,
25, just one last sentence. The only way you can grow a profit of 25 billion is to build something that will take 25 billion to 40 billion. Well, it has to be something expensive. Or
That's two sentences. That's three.
if-
Okay, Brent,
if-
finish your thought.
I was just thinking it's so much easier for them to build new phones and mobile devices because a lot of the world doesn't have the streets to do these and the infrastructure to do all these, electric cars and have electrical currents running out of the gas station. I mean, a lot of these, Africa and other parts of these big countries of the world, they have people, they don't have any of that infrastructure, but they have phones. And it seems like you keep, goosing them with new phones that give more functionality in these phones. You'll make way more money or profitable revenue than spending all your money on stuff like, cars with no steering wheel. I mean, what the hell is that all about?
I think the next move in cars is not building a car. It's building a better battery. And I think if you look at Apple's skill set is to build electronic devices and have them fabricated overseas and import them into this market. And I think if you add all that up, and if you can come to an understanding, or if you can invent a dry cell battery that will quadruple the mileage that you're getting on your electric car right now, then you've got a game changer. Then that's something that Apple would benefit from. It's like, in the PC revolution, PC makers were vertically integrated for a brief time, but then we discovered that it's easier to have Seagate make the drives, have Intel make the CPU, have somebody else make the memory, have somebody else make the motherboard. And I think that's where the electric car industry is going. Apple, if they're going to do something, could make a lot of money in batteries.
That's a really good point. It's intriguing to consider that the car industry never went through what was posited in the movie The Water Engine, where they did everything that they could to destroy that industry. They're not only are they not doing that, but they're co-opting it and jumping on top of it and doing all they can to become a part of it. So the idea, however, that a GM or someone that big is going to jump in 100%, and that a company like Apple creates a battery that those guys use, is an awful lot like GE making an engine that goes in a Boeing plane that's built in about 50 other countries.
Well,
It's true, but that would be a major shift in Apple's strategy, because they're not a component company. They're a whole widget company. They're not like Intel, which sells chips. Apple makes chips but puts them in their own devices.
Yeah,
By the way,
Apple's a product company.
Who starred in that movie, The Water Engine? Steven Seagal? I've never even heard of that before.
There was another movie called The Man in the White Suit, which said the same thing. Basically,
Right.
An indestructible suit was invented by Alec Guinness, or the character he played. And it turned out that that wasn't good for business.
Yeah,
What
The
year
Water
were they
Engine was
movie?
a radio play written by David Mamet, and then it was a stage play, and then it was a movie. And that was the premise, that there was a car that ran on water. And
It was also a TV show that starred Joe Mantegna.
By the
What
way,
year was this? Please tell me, what year was this?
by the way, we do have cars that run on water now. The fuel cell, hydrogen fuel cell cars are literally running on water. And with the announcement last week that the Brits have successfully created nuclear fusion, that is to say, clean energy from nuclear fusion, where they're making way more power on the output than it costs to create the fusion in the first place. That as that gets miniaturized, batteries go away. I mean, you basically get nuclear fusion powered cars that are literally running on water.
Energy too cheap to meter.
No wonder Putin is in such a hurry.
Much money.
I
Sorry,
don't
go
think
ahead.
you're going to see that your car running on water like that in the 50 years you've got left to live.
Yeah, well, I haven't got 50 years left to live. So
Yeah, well, those of us who have like 15 left.
Oh, this
my
is
brain's
getting
going to
really
go way before my
optimistic.
body.
So speaking of longevity and life cycles, there is an interview in GQ with Francis Ford Coppola, who has a huge movie project in mind. And he goes into some detail about how much time he thinks he has left in order to get it done.
Wow.
But I mean, what your comment just now was right, Steve, and Michael was right earlier when he talked about how weak the Russian economy is. And that may well be driving Putin together with all the other stuff we talked about. So that he is a weak actor, but he's just a pawn on the world stage. He's not really the main game.
Well, how long has he been in power? Like 26 years or something like that? Isn't it about time for people to get tired of him? I mean, seriously. I mean,
About
most of these
20
guys
years,
don't,
yeah.
they don't last that long, do they?
But why do you think he's so popular? I mean, there's a reason for it.
I have no idea.
Because if you oppose him, you die.
Well,
He's-
It
look,
had
he
something to
gave-
do with it.
we,
You know,
we already we know that he's
uh,
given 150,000 soldiers jobs.
Oh, okay. He bought the military off or something, or
I mean,
Those
that,
150,000 soldiers should be home making babies, so he
I
doesn't
mean,
have
let's remember that he's very ruthless about maintaining his power. Between people who get thrown out of windows and get poisoned, who get irradiated, who get arrested.
But that
See what
would-
happens when I make a small joke
Yeah.
and how it tanks the show.
It flips
Nice
the subject.
job, Steve.
wait a
Nice
minute. I
job.
don't think it tanked the show. I think it took the show in another direction.
well, wait a minute.
No,
What was
it
the joke?
returned to the death
can't
spiral of talking about Putin for
I see. Back to tech.
Yeah.
Go back to tech. So let's talk about the Facebook death spiral. Is it
Okay.
a death spiral or
Excellent.
not?
Nice segue. Go ahead.
Longevity.
No, there was a long Twitter screed by Cory Doctorow about this subject that's also in Keith,
Yes,
the
it is.
Telegram feed.
Yes, t.me/that was the week.
By the way, can I just give a shout out to? There's a couple of folks that are actually live tweeting here. John Fitzgerald
All right, John.
and Ron Sheridan. Shout outs. Thank you.
And is there anything you want to repeat that they're saying that we should talk about?
Well, Ron says that apparently the gang thinks Russia will invade Ukraine before the opening bell on Tuesday. And then he said, fun, fun, fun. And then John Fitzgerald, he actually got tweeted a nice image of this movie. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming.
Alan Arkin.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that one, unfortunately, but it's a
It's a good movie. Very
No,
funny.
It's a great comedy.
Oh, okay.
It's about a Russian sub landing by mistake in New England.
Is that
I
Jonathan?
think
Winter?
Nantucket.
Yeah,
It's quite
Jonathan
funny.
Winter's in this.
It's very funny.
No, okay. Yeah, I put that on my list.
Not,
Put
not
that
at all.
along with
not at-
the water engine thingy.
Not at all like what's going on now.
No,
Yeah, I once passed a movie theater marquee that had "The Russians are coming, the Russians are coming" on a double bill with "Marry Me, Marry Me."
wow, what a double bill.
Well, that's a quadruple bill, I guess.
I had double.
Mm.
Okay, so in other news, Frank,
No, Facebook.
How's,
No, I
yeah,
know.
I tried to tee it up, but
No.
no takers.
Okay.
No. It should be, there should be takers because, okay, if you were, let's do a vote then. Who thinks Zuckerberg will figure out a way to turn it around and Facebook will still end up being a winner? Hands up if you think Zuckerberg can turn it around.
I don't think he turns it around. I think they will continue to make money hand over fist.
Well, there are a lot of stories this week about how big business and small business are seriously trying to figure out what their position in the metaverse is. And if he ends up owning the metaverse like he seems to want to do, that could make a difference.
I don't see him.
I think
the metaverse.
it's instructive to look at the Salesforce Matthew McConaughey commercial on the Olympics, where Salesforce makes a significant dig at the metaverse through McConaughey and says, you know what? We got plenty of stuff to work on right here on Earth. We don't need the metaverse. We don't need Mars. Let's get to it. And I think that is I think that's really on the nose.
Kind of circling him back around to the truckers thing. I think some
Yes,
people.
it is.
I really do think that some people are getting way too far ahead of thinking everything is going to go metaverse, when there's actual, like, human stuff, like physical stuff that we do need beyond all the virtual stuff. And I think the more these guys fight over that, somebody's going to be a winner figuring out the real world.
So where does Bitcoin and NFTs fit into that? Oh, wait a minute. There goes.
No, I mean, I'd say if you substitute the word NFTs for buying and selling, what's really happening is buying and selling is becoming more digital. And as it becomes more digital, various instruments come into being to help it happen. And at this stage, you could make fun of NFTs because some of the stories are weird. But the truth is, it's a very viable mechanism for establishing ownership over something you purchase. And it's probably just going to grow like crazy from here. There's no, in my mind at least, no question about that. And
So
the issue is,
hang on
in
a
a way,
hang on a second.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Before you change the subject again, Keith, would you answer your own poll?
Yeah, I think it's hard to have an opinion based on any kind of knowledge because it's a guess. But Zuckerberg has shown incredible resilience twice before at moments when Facebook's very existence was being called into question. I think the WhatsApp and the Instagram acquisitions were genius on his part in retrospect.
They're great.
And I suspect he'll find a way out because I think he's resilient, young enough to care. He's not ready to give up. And he's surrounded by a strong team. So I think he actually will figure it out. But I don't know.
There is a difference that's worth exploring, though. In terms of those acquisitions, he was looking at competitors who were stealing his lunch. And he said, okay, I'm just going to bring them into the tent and then it'll be my lunch again. In the case of the metaverse, he's trying to invent something new. There is no metaverse that he's trying to steal. He's putting a lot of money on a very big bet.
No, that will
it's exactly parallel to Bitcoin and NFT in that these are all digital assets that don't have real world backing and analogs. They are a purely digital play. In some ways, as you said, Keith, an NFT is like a deed. It's a register that you own something. But if you have a deed to property and a deed to house, the deed points to physical goods. If you have an NFT based on digital art, what is that deed pointing to? It's pointing to nothing.
Well, Proppy, which is the blockchain startup that Michael Ashton's partner runs, sold two houses now with NFTs as the transfer mechanism.
That's one thing. When you use an NFT as a deed to, real world goods, that's something that I can understand. When you use an NFT as a deed to something that only exists as a digital good, I'm not sure where the value lies.
Exactly.
Because the digital good can be reproduced without the NFT.
Well, it depends. It depends whether the digital good has value in its own right. If it does, an NFT is a reasonably viable mechanism for establishing ownership. But so the real question there is, can digital goods have value? A piece of art or whatever. I think the answer to that has to be yes. Even though it can be reproduced by copying it, that so can a painting, by taking a photograph of it or something.
But there is a unique difference between the painting that was actually created by the hand of an artist and the painting that's created by the hand of a copier. There is a physical difference.
No, but what about the digital item that's created with an airbrush in Photoshop, and it's creative, it's hard work, it's real.
Oh, it is. It is, but it's not
3D object done in one of those 3D mapping tools.
Oh, absolutely, they are works of art. They exist, but they are not unique, and simply marking them with an NFT doesn't make them unique.
You make a good point.
Everybody has to vote on the Facebook poll before or at the end of what they talk about NFTs about.
Will Zuckerberg?
I want to hear from somebody who's just been talking about whether Facebook is going to survive or prosper.
Survive, yes. Prosper, yes. But turn around, hard to see.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to go back to the whole resiliency question and just point out that the way Zuckerberg has structured the ownership of the company, he can't be pushed out. And any resiliency discussion is really a comparison between a founder CEO who does not have that luxury and Zuckerberg himself, who does. So it's not a fair comparison. And I think it's quite possible, and we've seen it lots of times in history, that the founder runs out of ideas.
Unless Zuckerberg invades the Ukraine.
Virtually,
yeah.
In the metaverse.
The idea of by the way, of an NFT, of a 3D piece of art that is then created in a 3D printer that you only, because you own that diagram, that's another thing that I can see. But the idea of the deeds, I can see that too. The idea of an NFT that sells a piece of art that only you have and doesn't really exist in the real world, I don't know.
Okay, but Frank, you have to weigh in on Facebook.
Yeah, he definitely survives and prospers.
Okay, Dennis, have you voted?
I don't think he prospers. I think he's running out of gas.
Okay.
Well, maybe unless he goes electric.
Has everybody voted?
Yes, the stock market has voted rather dramatically.
So the stock market votes up and down.
Stock market's never been wrong.
Well, the real test would be whether we all go and buy Facebook shares at some point soon, on the assumption that they might double.
Well, if that's
we keep looking for that. You keep looking. I keep looking for. Well, someone must see this as a buying opportunity. Look how cheap it is, and so far it hasn't rallied.
Yeah,
I don't know why. It continues to ooze.
Nothing is rallying right now. Nothing
has rallied recently because the overhang of inflation and Ukraine are weighing heavily on everybody. But if one or both of those things goes away, I think you're going to see a rebound. If it doesn't, then all bets are off. Buy companies that make tanks. Buy their stock.
You know what? You used to be able to see that the stock market would go down and the 10-year yield would go up. And it's been exactly the opposite in the last almost 3 weeks, which is really dangerous.
No, I personally think the market is massively oversold because it's sentiment driven, and sentiment is in the toilet. I'm not a big investor in the stock markets, but insofar as I do invest in stock markets, I was buying last week, not selling.
I bought a bunch of Prozac.
Okay, Tina, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to read a comment from Ian Waring, who said NFT is a DRM to try to breed scarcity in the internet unlimited copy machine.
Correct. I think he's right. The internet is an unlimited copy machine, and scarcity is about originality. And the NFT is a way to tie a certificate to an original. Obviously, that's wide open to scams by people creating certificates of things that are not original. But there's nothing wrong with the effort.
Well, I do understand the idea of it being digital rights management.
It's different. It's not the right to view, it's the right to sell, because you own it.
It's a rationalization of DRM via the blockchain.
It's true, but DRM usually presumes that there will be multiple instantiations sold. So you have DRM on software because you want to sell a lot of it and you don't want people to steal it. The idea that there's only one copy of your program, that's unusual. That's a little bit more than DRM.
Well, the NFTs do both. They can be serialized, as in, for example, I said I got this Kia EV6. Well, it's the first edition, and they're numbered, and there's a little plaque inside that says number 356 out of 1500. And there's no NFT, so if that plaque fell off, no one would know that.
Right.
But if I had an NFT assigned to that car saying it was number 356 out of 1500, I could prove it. I can't, so there's many use cases, and they can be serialized. There can be many instances of an original, like there are in the physical world. You can get prints of a painting that are restricted to a certain number of prints. So I think it's all fine. I don't think we need to be negative about NFTs. Actually, I think
I'm not negative about them. I'm negative about descriptions, answers to questions about one technology, which pose diversions into other technologies. Mm-hmm. It seems like, well, that's true, but on the other hand, how about this?
Well, I mean, here are some things we know about Facebook. Their revenue is from advertising. Unlike, say, Apple, whose revenue comes from selling hardware and services directly to the people who use it, Facebook's revenue comes from selling attention of their users to advertisers. And there have been a couple of things that have come up that are getting in the way of that, such as Apple's privacy suite. And Google has just announced they're going to have a privacy suite on Android. That has significantly degraded the value of advertising on Facebook because the tracking mechanisms have been disrupted,
which is largely responsible for the stock drop.
Also, in North America, the user growth has topped out and begun to decline. And what's significant about that is that North American users are worth far more in advertising dollars to Facebook than European users, and far more than Asian users. So they are having headwinds in their most profitable stream of revenue.
Yep.
I changed my vote.
No, but Michael's completely right. That's a really good analysis of what's going on, which means that if Zuckerberg is to pull a rabbit out of his hat, he needs to be looking at what's going on in the world that are counter tendencies to that. For example, Spotify this week acquired 2 more podcasting companies that do metrics and metadata gathering. So the subscription economy is booming, and Facebook doesn't have a play there at all. But it has a large enough market cap. If it should choose to want to have a play there, it could. So, you know, these are big chess moves on the board that Zuckerberg has available to him, and we'll see what he does. I would say advertising can only prosper if you have a large direct audience. And if you look at the two biggest audiences in the world, it's Google search and Facebook usage. Facebook usage hasn't gone down at all.
Well,
It's
yes,
huge.
but the value of advertising isn't just the addressable size of your audience. It's also your ability to target and track. And that's what made Google advertising valuable, more valuable than TV advertising. And it's what made Facebook advertising more valuable than Google advertising. And when you
you're right,
disrupt
Mike.
that part of it,
No, but
you
Michael,
do
you're-
change things.
Michael, you're right, except there's two kinds of tracking. There's cross-site tracking, which is what's being killed.
Right.
So the metadata you have on someone can only pertain now to what you know about them. And so Google's adjusted, and it's got this new product called Topics that is doing tracking of its own users, not cross-site. And then Facebook, you know, with the amount of content on Facebook and the number of users, the biggest problem they've got is they haven't built an in-house tracking mechanism, but they certainly have enough data to build one if they choose to. And so their tracking of their own users can get a lot better without needing any cross-site stuff. They just have to build it.
I was going to say that, you know, you mentioned Spotify and you talked about the business that they're creating in the podcast world. The NARIS, the Recording Academy, came out today with a pretty strong statement about their investigation of the prices that, or what they're paying musicians and artists for their music, and that and we know that it's very, very, very low. It's pennies on the dollar. It's not at all like in the old days when a radio play would get you 50 cents. It's, you know, it's like 20,000 plays get you 50 cents. And so I think that there is definitely some process going on in the thinking that Spotify becomes a podcasting distribution outlet as opposed to a music distribution outlet.
Not as
It's clear that that's been the strategy of their business move.
Yeah.
You know, when they signed Joe Rogan,
it is,
they're trying to create a new revenue stream that's not dependent on music royalties. And now I don't know if they're going to switch, but they're certainly going to supplement.
Well, I think Steve was about to say the same thing I was just thinking when I said that. I don't think it's one or the other, but I do think that they're building that, like you said, they're building that as an alternative.
It's the Amazon Prime business model, which is you keep putting as much value as you can into the product so that people keep paying the subscription, and if possible, charge more for it over time as the stuff you bundle in gets more valuable to them.
Until the musicians say enough.
Oh yeah, the musicians, they have what power?
Yeah,
They own the songs.
Some of
They
them
own the
have a
music.
lot of power.
They don't own the songs. They're selling them off to private equity firms.
Those guys are, yeah.
Those guys have
But
power.
that's not.
Frank, even though you're right, the pie of music revenue is in the last couple of years, for the first time since the collapse of the CD market, is now bigger than it used to be before. So the total pie is growing.
Yeah, but that's because it was so bad that now it's a little better.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with anything other than, you know, major artists who, as I just said, are selling off their catalogs and their publishing and synchronization rights to private equity firms.
I think that's
a capitulation in the market.
No, I don't think so. I think it's slightly different. I think that is a different narrative than the narrative around subscriptions and streaming revenues. I think that is more to do with leveraging the future value of an asset whilst you're still alive. I think it's basically deciding.
No, I disagree. You know, basically what David Bowie started this about 15, 20 years ago when he
Yeah.
sold
Sold
his
stock.
future earnings to a private equity firm.
So
Yeah.
what is the average
Yeah,
age
yeah, but
of the
he got-
musician that has made a multi-$100 million sale?
85.
You know,
Uh,
I mean, they're
That's
you remember
78.
you remember toward
Dead,
the end
basically.
toward the end of Sir Laurence Olivier's or Lord Larry's career, he would take any crap role in any movie that was available to him because he just began thinking about what he could leave to his children, and he had built his own.
Yeah, no,
Personal artistic
that's
level.
certainly true, Michael. But the pandemic has basically there was only one way for a musician to make money in the last 10 years, and that was touring.
Live concerts. Yeah.
And the pandemic just took that out, and the transition from CDs to piracy to nothing in terms of recordings took out the rest of it. So, they're in bad shape, and it's going to continue to be bad.
Let me ask this question:
until there are live events again.
What is the thinking behind the private equity firms and the public firms like Sony for making these investments? How do they intend to recoup half $500 million?
They what happens is they build a spreadsheet model that maps out. They'll all have different time frames. If it's private equity, it's a short time frame, usually less than 10 years, by sometimes less than 5. If it's a label, it's a longer time frame, but they'll have a model that says what is the N-year value of this asset, and that model will include all different potential streams of money, and then they'll pay, I don't know, maybe 1/5 or 1/3 of that number today to get ownership of that revenue stream, and that 1/3 or 1/5 is a lot of money to the owner of the rights. They're basically getting 10 years worth of revenue all up front, or something like that. So it's a win-win if it works.
There's I'm going to put the brakes on here for you, Steve, and make a sharp left. Tomorrow's Guardian has a headline that says that investors are alarmed as streaming services lose their magic touch. What was a red hot outlook is cooling rapidly as market saturation coincides with the squeeze on household budgets. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah, said cable operators everywhere.
So we've been talking about this for more than a year.
Yeah.
At some point, there's a household budget, and you can't subscribe to everything and keep all of those subscriptions running all the time.
Which is tease up something that we're not talking about today, which is the paywall. Okay,
Well,
so
thanks for that, Jessica.
I'm just gonna pull the plug on this because we're at an hour and 20, and we've been talking about it for a year. So let's see, that adds up to.
Well, could I throw a shout out to Frank, who joined me and Paul Greenberg on our Seer and Players show last Thursday, and it was I learned a lot from Frank. I mean, I learned a lot from you guys generally speaking, but having him on that show, it was really interesting. All the things that I learned and heard, and I just kind of sat back and let him and Paul go at it because they have quite a lot in common.
I heard a good chunk of that show, and I saluted as well. It was really
Thanks.
good.
It was really enjoyable. I was honored that you guys asked me to come on. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, you're right. Paul and I do have a whole bunch of stuff in common, including
criminal
our age.
records.
FBI investigation.
Weatherman. It was
SDS.
yeah, brokering SDS Weatherman summits.
That was pretty
Which
cool.
evidently- Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't there.
Got me into the business anyway. And I could walk outside and play in the band in front of about 1,000 people in the middle of the University of Maryland campus. So
Nice.
two of my dreams at the same time. That's just the way it worked out.
Go Terrapins.
Go Terps.
So, all right, once around the horn, as they say, and that means Cape Horn. For those of you who
What's that?
are paying, it's a display
one that
down at the
Gillmor
bottom
went
of the earth when they say
cake
is
porn. I thought you said cake porn.
on that show,
Cake porn.
once around the cake horn. Yeah.
I thought you. Oh, okay. Anyway, all right.
Well, you said that on your show that you're just talking about. You said once around the horn.
Cape Horn.
Yeah, it didn't say Cape Horn though, but
Cake porn.
I did. Cake porn.
Cake porn.
Wow. Okay, so once around the cake porn, starting with Keith.
Mike Hat.
Well, so I think the meat in the sandwich is all about I don't think it's the creator economy. I think it's the subscription economy. And you mentioned the paywall. I think the future of everything is
No,
about.
you're not going to talk about that now.
No, I know. It's about
Anything else?
it's about what you consume, how you get it, and what the difference is between free stuff and stuff you're prepared to give a higher commitment to. That's the future of everything. And advertising doesn't go away, but it just stays where it is and is not the key driver of change.
Well, I'm really glad you didn't talk about it. So that's your last thought is the next thought? Is that what you're saying?
That was my last thought, but I wanted to tee up next week's show. So there you go.
Yeah. Thank you. Dr. Turmoil at the ready. Frank.
So I'm going to be very specific. Bob Odenkirk, who you may know as the star of Better Call Saul, did a movie that I don't think a lot of people saw. It's called Nobody. It's incredible. And he is now making Nobody 2. And I just want to say that I'm in. That's it.
This is where he got all buffed up.
You know what? It's where he acted like he was buffed, but he really wasn't buffed.
Bit like the Rams.
He kind of like the Rams, yeah. No,
Okay. Brent, it's your turn to not say anything.
Well, I really did have something to say, but that last statement kind of took it right out of me.
Oh no, they can't.
Oh.
But
Blame Canada. That's
that's
what.
excuses.
no, actually, one of my many shows is watching Amazon, and one of the things that we talked about was 2021 was the first year where the percentage of retail that e-commerce made up on the U.S. total U.S. retail actually decreased. So really interesting. Now that's because it went up quite dramatically during I guess the height of the pandemic. So it had been growing pretty significantly, and then it took off. And last year, as people started to go back to the stores, I guess the percentage of retail from e-commerce actually went down. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next year or this year.
I wonder how much of that Amazon is responsible for, because they're putting up an awful lot of physical stores.
Yeah.
Michael, is that your last thought?
No, my last thought is the guy that we never talk about might be running into some headwinds, but I won't talk about it.
Well, but when I
Give us
suggested
one
it a few
headline.
weeks ago, you seemed dubious, and now you seem to be trending toward maybe there is a thing there.
Well, if I unpack it, I'll have to talk about it. He still seems to have the command of a majority of a minority party who are still loyal to him. He's oozing at the margins, but I'm talking about the legal headwinds he's running into, not the political loyalty headwinds. The courts were brutal to him this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and do you think that he's going to be able to run out the clock?
I don't think so. Not all the clocks.
Really?
He'll run out some clocks, but not all of them.
Well, name one that's going to be meaningful.
All right. Georgia.
Oh, good call.
Anything that's happening at a state level where he can't get reelected president and absolve himself, he's screwed in New York. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Okay, is that your final thought for the day?
My final thought is batteries. Many batteries, dry cell batteries, high capacity batteries. battery, 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 battery.
Yeah, and I'll just add, there's a Kia commercial that looks like an iPhone commercial
Yeah.
from beginning to end. And basically it's making the same point as Steve Jobs made with his actions by creating the iPhone as a substitute for the iPad, which the market wasn't ready for. So, the electric car is a bigger iPad.
It is. It's a battery pad.
Okay. I want to thank
Oh,
our,
no, wait, hang on.
what?
I wanted to hear a little bit from Steve and from Frank about the passing of PJ O'Rourke. You both had a chance to meet and
Okay,
work with.
but then we have to talk about everything.
Well,
Yeah.
just a little bit.
Well, Frank, we both spent glorious time with him. He was he was the funniest conservative that ever lived.
Yeah. He was a warm, funny, smart, caring individual, brilliant writer, just could talk about absolutely anything. And even if you were against what he was talking about, you certainly didn't walk away from it going, God, I really hated that. No, he was a brilliant guy. I did a TV show with him and Richard Belzer that you all, Stephen and Tina, know about, and it was an amazing experience, and I stayed in touch with him until I guess maybe 4 or 5 years ago when we just stopped communicating. He was always ready to get back to you on an email, and I know a lot of people don't do that. He was that kind of guy. Really gonna miss him.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks to our producer and director, Tina J. Gillmor.
Thank you, guys. I say this a lot, but this show really has it all. So I loved it today, and thank you for being here, especially on a Sunday. I like these Sunday shows. And yes, Brent, your guys won.
Regardless of what Keith says, we won.
You did.
Okay, thanks to Keith's here. Thank you, Keith. Frank Radis.
Thank you.
Brent Leary.
Mhm.
Tip of the hat.
Does that say champions?
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Michael Markman. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, since he started all this with his doomscape postings from the New York Times, I mean, does it ever stop getting worse?
I guess when you close your eyes for the last time. But
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
You know what? I'll let you know.
otherwise, we just try to maintain an even strain.
That was really great there. That one got me there, Dennis.
Thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. And thanks to all the people that find us on a Sunday or a Friday in real time. You guys are the real secret here. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.